I want to first thank our sponsors, which is Pro Photo Daily, American Photography, Epson, Photo Shelter, and Archive Magazine. Tonight's, I think, Jordan, Jordan and Anna, you guys had presented once before, right?
Yes, we did. Like
A while back. Yeah.
during the lockdowns, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Right. That's right. In Brooklyn. Now I remember those images. Yes. So we're having Anna and Jordan Rathkoff present as well tonight, and we're thrilled about that as repeat presenters. And we start off tonight with a very dedicated viewer of Projections, Howard Paley, and we're thrilled to have him. So Howard, take the screen over, and it's all yours.
Great. Let me just do a screen share here. And tell me if you see a blank screen on the the screen.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. So what I put together was a PowerPoint. It's about 3 minutes long with some music from a friend of mine, a Native American flautist, Travis Terry, that'll show a series of 36 images, and then it'll go to individual frames, and we can talk about it. You can ask questions and so forth. My background originally was in forestry and range management at the University of Arizona. I did not pursue that as a career. I worked for a couple of years for the Bureau of Land Management, but then I went on and created a marketing communications company, and I worked almost exclusively with charities around the United States. I did a little bit of theater work, and that's the short course on my professional development. So here we go. Okay, so that's the video. And then how do I then show, because it was in PowerPoint, I don't know how to go about showing the individual.
So Howard, now
image.
you go back to share,
Okay, go
and
back
this
to
time
share.
you go to the regular basic one and you just click on your PowerPoint window like you did last time.
Go back to my normal.
Yep.
So let me see, I am to
So-
basic.
Yep. So
Got
yep, under basic, you'll see one of your screens there, or you can select PowerPoint so you only see PowerPoint.
Okay,
Perfect.
I'm gonna share that, and let me just go past, there we go. Okay. Okay, can you see that on the screen?
Howard, do me a favor, just full screen by hitting the arrows, the double arrows in the upper right hand side. A little bit to the left, you see the two arrows pointing up, bottom left, bottom right, upper right hand side, right by where your mouse is. Move a little bit
upper right
higher,
hand,
a little bit
Yep.
higher.
apps, more.
Right, you see where it says
Okay.
35%? There you
Yes,
go.
I see that. Okay, and just
You
go,
keep two more. No, keep going. Two icons to the left. You see the two arrows pointing up and down. One more.
I don't have that on my screen.
No, I see it right here in mine.
I don't have it on mine. So
Oh,
is
okay.
it really tiny on your screen?
No, it's fine.
Okay,
That's the
I
full
don't
screen
have-
window. That's why it makes it full screen.
let me see what I have here. This goes here. And then we have an ellipsis here. No. More. Was hoping that this would go a little bit more smoothly.
Don't worry, we'll edit this out.
Resume the share. Okay, so let me just go through what I
Okay.
have.
Yeah,
We'll
this
just
is
go.
fine.
Okay, so this image is of an air motor in Sonoyta, Arizona. That's about 40 miles to the southeast of Tucson. No exceptional story, just to say that it was raining all day long. There was a brief moment when the sky opened up just a little bit for the sun to peer through. It just lit up the foreground. I knew I was golden, stopped the car, actually turned around and went back, took the shot, and within minutes, the clouds had turned up, and that was the end of it. So sometimes it's just got to be out in the field and be willing to stop and use your camera.
And Howard, how
This
long are
is,
you living out there, Howard?
Excuse me?
How long? No, how long are you living out there?
I moved to Arizona in 1975. I transferred from Hofstra University at the University of to the University of Arizona, and I studied range management and forestry, wildlife biology, and watershed management, and I did that for a couple of years, working for the Bureau of Land Management. Lived in southern Utah to go work in the northern canyonlands of Arizona. That's kind of where I learned how to use my camera. And how to appreciate the desert landscape that exists out here. My approach to my photography is to figure out how to capture a scene and to make it and turn it into art, something that somebody wants to own, put on their wall, that creates or captures the beauty of the moment. That's what I strive for. The photo that's on your screen at the moment is a place called Manzanita Vista. It's on a mountain range outside of Tucson. It was late in the afternoon after a rainy day. Sun was setting, the mist blew up the canyon. I was driving up to go to a slightly higher elevation, but when I saw this through the front window of the vehicle, I stopped, took the photo, and it's called Alabaster Mist is the name of that photo. I love the rock formations. I just love the mystical feel of it. We get a monsoon season in southern Arizona, like they do in Southeast Asia, from the 15th of June through the 15th of September, and almost every afternoon between 3 and 6 o'clock at night, we will have thunderstorms, massive thunderstorms. And this one called the anatomy of a storm because it has everything. It has the sunset, it has the bolt, it has the rain that comes down, and if you notice in the bottom right corner, there's a little bit of glow on the ground. The previous bolt it must have hit a tree and put it on fire. And I happened to be in the right place at the right time. No trick to taking lightning photography. If your lens is open, you'll probably get a lightning bolt during the storms that we have in Tucson. This is up in Sedona, very famous place. This is called the West Fork Park. It's a little known park that's about 17 miles of hiking across the West Fork of Oak Creek. And at different times of the year, there are different experiences here. The autumn is absolutely glorious, as you can see. The water carves these archways into the rock formation. And if you get there early enough in the morning, the water's pretty still. Otherwise, the foot traffic that's in that canyon turns the water kind of creamy and muddy. And the quality of the photography is not quite the same. This is also on top of Mount Lemmon, about 9,000 feet above Tucson. It is the only place here in Southern Arizona where you can catch the autumn. Living in a desert biome, we don't normally get to see the turn of the trees, but there's sugar maple, aspen, beech, and a number of other types of species that will turn color. It's in a little community called Bear Wallow, and it's named appropriately because there are bears that live down in this area. There's a walking path, and you're just immersed in color for about 3 weeks, and then it's gone. This is in a little town called Red Rock that's about 50 miles to the west of Tucson. The mountain range on the horizon is called Ragged Top for obvious reasons. This was late in the afternoon. When we get dust in the air, the sun, when it hits it, will just create these amazing chroma. So you can catch various layers of different light, of different color in the mountain ranges. You just have to make sure that you don't overexpose. Everything as I shoot is shot on tripod. This is in a volcanic formation called Cerro Prieto. The sun spiral that's in the foreground was probably chiseled into that rock about 750 years ago. Off in the distance, the mountain range is called Picacho Peak. And I was telling you about the wildflowers when we were first getting ready to do this presentation. These are called bluebells. And I specifically went to be able to shoot petroglyphs surrounded by wildflowers. That was my passion. That's what I was looking for. I got lucky. Early morning, sun was at my back. And I also learned something that's I can share with you is that when you shoot petroglyphs with the flash, the part of the petroglyph that's carved into the rock will reflect the light. The dark brown of the rock will absorb the light. And so you don't overexpose anything, but you emphasize the actual rock drawings. Almost counterintuitive when you're in full sun.
And Howard, when you go out, do you scout first, or you say, today I'm going to leave early and I'm going to go to this area and see what you get?
I have been to each place that I've shared with you hundreds of times. Lots of miles on the car, lots of tires, lots of gasoline, lots of wasted days because the weather isn't right, the light isn't right. But you know, if you're shooting for lightning, certainly shooting for something like this, the picture that's in front of you here, you wait for the storms to blow in and then you rush out to places where you've already pre-identified swallows and other types of rock formation. So that you can capture images, but truly you don't know what you're going to get. This was a monsoon storm. This is in the lower Salt River, which is outside of Phoenix in a town called Mesa. The little hills that are off to the bottom right is a place called Fountain Hills, Arizona, if you're familiar with that. And the sun set and blew its rays right through the gaps in the clouds, and I was standing in the right place at the right time, waiting for it to happen. So I may have taken 100 photographs that day to get 4 or 5 of them that were in the moment of when we got to see this kind of a glorious thing.
So Howard, you really have to keep really tight notes on all your trips in there about timing, day, day of the year and all of that, huh?
Yes, you do. You have to, and the more familiar you are with the landscape, when it comes to saguaro cactuses in particular, okay, I'm going to go back one image. I was raised in New York, so I was raised on Western movies. And the Squirrels were in the Westerns, and I strove to find ones that just reminded me of, Have Gun Will Travel and all the John Wayne flicks that I saw and stuff.
Right.
And so I find squirrels based on their arms. And then you have to have a certain aspect to them to be able to see all of their arms, and you have to know how tall to stand or how low to be to the ground, and to be able to put the base or where the arms are coming out of the squirrel above the horizon. So there's a method. There's definitely a method. This is looking at Ragged Top Mountain, this mountain range that's, I don't know if you can see my cursor, but the mountain range off in the top right. It was the same mountain that was in a previous photo. This is from the top of Picacho Peak, so I'm standing at approximately 4,500 feet, and a dust storm blew in below where I was standing. Had no idea that there was going to be a dust storm, but I knew from that vantage point, which is quite a climb. You have to really want to go to the top of this thing because you're going from the desert floor from about 1,700 feet to 4,000 feet. So it's quite a tour. And I got very, very lucky. I was blessed to have this moment, right camera, right time, took the image. What you don't know about this photograph is that it was shot with an old Nikon D70S, and it didn't have an automatic lens cleaning function built into the sensor. So I had to spend a lot of time getting rid of a lot of speckles on the original image. But I love it. This is in the bottom, you see that little thimble sticking up. That's Thimble Point. This was just one of those moments. I turned to my wife, who was sitting in the house, and I said, Bobby, I think the sunset is going to be absolutely incredible. We have to get to the top of this mountain. So within about 25 minutes, we hit this vantage point to witness this most amazing cloud formation. And those are the kinds of things that I wait to see, that I watch the sky for. This is also from Mount Lemmon. So the images that you see to the left, those are called hoodoos, Hoodoo. It's a rock formation that you find in many different places, but you also find them on the top of this mountain. And we're looking at about 5 different mountain ranges looking directly south towards Mexico. This was late in the afternoon, just before sunset. And there was a lot of particulate in the air. You can see in the foreground that there's some white stuff. It was actual snow on the ground, which is why everything came out with blue hues. It was just a very, very cold day. And I was lucky.
Wait a second, Howard. You really have to stop saying you were lucky.
Yeah.
You're busting your balls. You're going up hills. You're going up mountains. You're jumping in cars. You're doing all that stuff. It ain't luck. You're gonna tell some young person here it's all about luck. You got it. Yeah,
That's right.
And I've never confronted a photographer ever on projections until this very moment. You're not
Howard, the shot doesn't frame itself.
Yes.
Say that anyway. Okay, I'll erase. This was a beautiful scene, and I was fortunate enough to be in the right place at the right time, and I knew to be there, so that was part of the thing. Okay. Mount Lemmon you'll see it pervasive in this show, but this is on the highway, almost just above city level, and where the sun is actually setting in is the Tucson mountain range, and you're able to place the saguaro cactus right into silhouette, which is why I stood in this particular location. Again, waiting for weather, making the rush up the mountain, 17, 18 miles from my front door at that time where I was living. Fortunately, we got the reds, which I love to shoot for red. And this is way north. This is a place called Pete Seal. Pete Seal in Navajo means broken pottery. What you can't see, but you might be able to get some sense of it, is the entire walkway that's in the foreground here is all littered with broken pieces of shards of pottery. This is 6 miles up a wet canyon. You're only allowed to stay a day. You're met by a guide, a Navajo guide, who will lead you into this ruin. It's called the Eye of the Anasazi. And you can spend the entire day there photographing it. To give you some sense of how remote it is, it has matatis, which are the grinding bowls that the Native American peoples used to grind corn and other things to feed their village. And there were still corn cobs in batatis. So, and this was built 700 to 800 years ago. One of the best preserved ruins in Navajo National Monument in northern Arizona. And I'm in love with this stuff. So I will chase up Canyon. And for me, it's a question of determining how much camera equipment, how much water and food. And this was not an easy canyon. It was a wet canyon, and there was quicksand and all kinds of interesting things that you had to navigate through to get to this spot. This was back down in the Tucson area. This is a place called Agua Caliente. I included it in the show because I wanted you to know that water is life. And it's golden here in Arizona. What you're seeing in front of you doesn't exist anymore. There was a fire that swept through here, burned all the brush out of it. All of the palm trees are now charred. They had to drain it, reseal the area, and then wait for the rains to come, which it did this year. And so for the first time in about 7 years, there's now water back in the spot, but none of the reeds, they're all gone. Filled with herons, filled with turtles, cormorants, all kinds of birds. Fabulous place to photograph. Egrets, white egrets, phenomenal. This is also taken from Mount Lemmon Highway. I'll go through this one real quickly to give you some idea. The saguaros sit on a canyon wall about 3 football fields from the road across a deep canyon that goes down about 60 feet. And the moon will rise up through the saguaros. And then you can walk up the road 25 yards and set it behind the cliff and shoot it again. And then walk another 25 yards and shoot the moonrise again. And so for about an hour, you can shoot the moon rising through saguaro, rising through mesquite trees, rising through ocotillo plants. It was something I discovered early on, and I've taken a lot of people here and shown them how to shoot the moon. The fun part is that the saguaros on a 300 millimeter lens are at infinity. So that's why the moon is sharp and the saguaros are sharp.
So do you do tours, Howard?
Yes, I do. Yes, I
You
do.
do.
I have
Okay.
a company called Southwest Photo Safari that I take people out.
Yeah, you
COVID
have to put that in the chat room so people
I
will.
will do that. I will do that. This is Aravaipa Canyon. To give you some idea how remote this is, it's 15 miles long. There's the western end of it. They only allow 24 people in a day. And it's a wet canyon, so you're walking in water all day long. You'll notice in the foreground all the yellow. That is, and some red. There are penstemons, there's poppies, and I hit it kind of 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and you can see the halo of all the needles on the saguaro get lit up by the sun. And I live for that moment, and when it happens, you're golden. And was with a group of about 4 other people. 2 of them were my boys, and we had an incredible experience there. This is Chiricahua National Monument. This is about 120 miles from Tucson. It is a desiccated cauldron, volcanic cauldron. The towers that you see in the center and across the ravine, across the canyon itself, are rhyolite boulders. So as the water and wind erode away the rock, you end up with these incredible towers and balanced stones and stuff. This was also during the monsoon season. This is the canyon that I lost my first Nikon D90. I got caught in a hailstorm, a rainstorm, and my Parker, little, plastic Parker, $1.59 Parker, was sitting in the truck because I didn't think I was going to need it. And I couldn't have been wetter had I been swimming. The camera got absolutely flooded with water. This was literally the last photograph I took with that camera. Never worked well again, even after I sent it back to Nikon. So you live and you learn.
Yeah, it's amazing that all this imagery is all in Arizona.
It's all Arizona, and most of it's Southern Arizona, which is what I thought I would do, because many of you may not have been here, and people don't quite understand the allure, and hopefully I'll leave you with that and wanting to see more. This is the same canyon and the same saguaro that I shot that moonrise over, except this is at dawn. So you can go back to the same spots over and over again at different times of day, different atmospheric moments, and get completely different photographs. And so again, you watch the weather. If there are fires burning and you get all the smoke, you'll get a completely different colorization of your landscape. And so you wait and you watch for those moments.
Yeah, yeah.
This is another Hohokam petroglyph. This is called Signal Hill. It's in a park called Saguaro National Monument on the other side of the Tucson Mountains, which is in the backdrop that you see there. It is also about between 700 and 800 years old. It was used by the Hohokam civilization to monitor herd movement. And been a lot of stories written about it. And the tops of this stone that it was carved in were carved in such a way to mirror the actual peaks. And that's the way they lined it up and put sticks on it and figured out what time of year they were at.
Oh, okay.
Fascinating place. There's about 100 petroglyphs on this particular site. It's less than a football field from the parking area. There's no effort to get to it, but you have to know where it is. This is also further north. This is Monument Valley. And I put it in because if you've been there, then you know just how magical it is. And if you've been there at dawn, it's even more so. Depending on, again, atmospheric moments, you will get all kinds of dust and stuff that the sun likes to pick up, and you end up with all that layering that you see to the left of the photograph. I love silhouettes. The mitten at Monument Valley is ideal for that kind of shot. So from an artistic standpoint, it just rocks, to be punny.
Yes. Yes.
This is what's called a mold copy formation. So there's lots of dinosaur fossils here. This is outside of Winslow, to the east of it. And you literally get this sense that the earth is melting in on itself. And in fact, it is, because when it rains, it gets smaller and smaller, and the valleys get deeper and deeper. It's a very, very, very soft stone right off the side of the highway. And I love the patterns in it. So I also shoot, you'll see in my work, I like to shoot for patterns, repetition of pattern. In Aravaipa Canyon that I spoke to you about earlier, we had, there's a bighorn sheep population. I just happened to be in the right place at the right time. This fella came down, took a look at me, turned his head, snapped the photo. Probably have about 15, 20 images of him and several others, but he had the horns, he had that neck formation. You get the sense of the strength of this animal. And that's what I liked about this photo. This is again up in Sedona. This is probably one of the most photographed rock structures there. This Cathedral Rock in Red Rock Park. Came late in the afternoon. The sun is behind me, and you can see the reflection of the spire in the water. Water gets really, really flat. And this time of year, it's very navigable. You can walk the entire creek bed. Right now, it's flooded. You couldn't get in here if you tried. The autumn comes very, very late here. So this was, I don't recall exactly, but I think this was probably shot in January. This is Sabino Canyon, which is a very famous park in Tucson. This is called prime time because it was the prime time to shoot photographs with the sun setting, lighting up all the saguaro cactus. The spire on the horizon is called Cathedral Rock. And my wife and I lived close enough that we used to hike this 2 or 3 times a week. And after you do that, you become familiar with different places to be and different times times of day to be there. And we were golden this day. This is also back up in Sedona, and just a word about converting from color to black and white. Sometimes the color doesn't give you the drama that is inherent in a scene. And typically for me, it comes when you get a cloud formations like this one. By the end of the day, it was raining. And the clouds blew in these little tufts. There's some really wonderful Western painters who specialize in trying to capture these cloud formations. Maynard Dixon is one that comes to mind. Ed Mell is another one that comes to mind. And when I stand in these places and see these things, I think of them. This is Thimble Point. Yeah, I pointed out Thimble in an earlier photograph to you. When sometimes we get storms and they blow in at around 2,400 feet. So if you get up above it, around 6,000 feet, 7,000 feet, which is where I'm standing, all you see are the spires from the mountain range and on the tops of the clouds. Thimble Point. This is also from Mount Lemmon Highway, roughly was at the time was about 25 miles from my front door. This is Grand Canyon, famous place, sunset, Hopi Point. You can see the Colorado River down there on the bottom left. Again, it was a function of knowing where to be, being able to see the weave of the canyon, setting the camera up so that I didn't overexpose the what was happening in the cloud formation, hoping that I could catch the sun come through. But it turned out it was after the sun went down that there was enough contrast in the foreground to be able to pick up some of the definition in the canyon. And again, it was a golden moment. In the lower Salt River, outside of Phoenix, in Mesa, Arizona, Saguaro Lake is part of the Salt River Project's reservoir for generating electricity for the city and for providing irrigation water for that valley, is a herd of wild horses. And they're protected forever. I did a Ukrainian fundraiser. It was an art auction. And as soon as the auction was over, I rushed to the bottom of the canyon because I knew where I could find my friends. And there was this grouping of four, it's a family, and I shot for about an hour. And when that one mare on the far end put her head down to the water, I said, oh my God, I'm ready. That's the moment. And that was the moment. And also all of their heads lit up so you could see all the horses' eyes.
Yeah.
You just kind of get a sense of the tranquility of the moment. I call this photograph soft space.
And Howard, what's the determining factor for you, color versus black and white?
So sometimes color doesn't, it takes away from the image to me. I don't know how to explain it. It's, I really don't know how to explain it. It's, I think that the drama of some photography comes from black and white, being, of not stimulating your brain, if you will, or distracting it with a color. And so sometimes by removing color, I think you end up with a stronger image. That's the only way I know how to describe it. So sometimes I use it and sometimes I don't. There's just a few more and then I'll be done here. Spider Rock is in a place called Canyon de Chelly. That's in northern Arizona. I took a gentleman by the name of Irving Olson with me. He was 99 years old, hired a guide, and they loved Irving because Irving was old and healthy. He died when he was 103 years old,
Wow.
lucid to his dying day. And I bought his camera from his sister because it was the way that I wanted to remember him. And I took him to this place called Spider Rock at sunrise. It's just this remnant canyon wall standing all by itself. It's a mystical place for the Navajos. I don't know the full story, but you can probably find it online. Spider Rock, fabulous, fabulous place. The very little white caps on the top of that stone is probably the reason why it's still standing. That's Kaibab limestone, which is it is not water soluble. And eventually when that cap disappears, that whole column will come down. So here's an example of conversion to black and white. So this is during the wildflower season. The foreground was filled with these tiny little yellow flowers. And I said, oh my God, I'm great. I'm in the right place at the right time. The clouds are there, perfect. But the flowers were so tiny that it didn't have the drama that I was feeling until I converted the image to black and white. I refer to the saguaro cactus as desert corduroy for obvious reasons. It reminds me of corduroy shirts and corduroy pants and stuff. The rock formation in the background is very stoic. It's almost like Land of the Lost, which is what draws me to this particular area. And again, I mark various saguaros for different reasons because I know, because they create a scene. And so part of setting up your camera is knowing that you have the right composition and then hoping that you have your cloud formations or that something magical is happening with it. There's a bird swooping by. Sometimes there's eagles and things like that, hawks and stuff. And then in this particular case, the drama of the image came when I took the color out. I wanted to show you this image because we get sunsets like this all the time in Tucson, Arizona. This is from Sabino Canyon. We have this sawtooth pattern on the Catalina Mountains. And what you'd see on the top of the saguaro cactus is all this little crenulated stuff that gives you a sense of what time of year it was. This is when the saguaros go to bloom. They have these beautiful white flowers. It's the state flower of Arizona. And this photograph captures all of that in a single image. It gives you the season, it gives you the canyon, it gives you the brilliance of the sunset all at once. This was probably the earliest image I've ever taken. My oldest son was probably 7. He's now 45. I brought him in. He was on my shoulders. I carried my camera and tripod in with me. This was a small little stream in Pima Canyon, one of the tributaries into the center of the Tucson Valley. This image is absolutely stunning, blown up. It was shot with a Fuji 100 and a Nikon F5 camera. I still have the camera. This is also shot from Hopi Point. This is one of the lessons that you learn is that always turn around. The sunset was glorious, but the beauty of the Grand Canyon was the reflection of light that you get at sunset and the color that it brings out in the canyon. And so when you turn around, you will also find magic. Lots of depth in this. This is back in Canyon de Chelly. I just want to show you this. The two fellows that I brought with me, Irving Olson being 99 and Bill George, who was with me, another photographer friend, they couldn't make it to this spot. And I saw the window and the guide stopped and let me climb all the way up to it. It was probably about half a mile to get to this opening. Set it up, clouds rolled past the eye of the window, took the photograph, came back with a smile on my face. Just a brilliant spot to be. And, you know, the wind is howling, fabulous. This is on the top of Mount Graham. This is outside of a town called Safford. This is at 10,000 feet. So this is an aspen forest. These plants are all part of these trees are all part of one organism. During the wintertime, they can get up to 126 feet of snow on this mountain. And so the bowing and the bending of the trees themselves occurs when the snow gets that heavy. And then you have autumn for about a week, sometimes less, because the winds will come in here in November and strip the leaves off the trees, throw them on the ground. Autumn is over. Yellow is gone.
Wow.
And this is the last photo in my series. This is down in Yuma, Arizona. So this is the 280 miles from home for me. This was after a rainstorm on our way to San Diego. We stayed in Yuma overnight to split the trip in half. My wife is not an early as riser as I am, so I ran out to the Imperial Sand Dunes, walked out onto the dunes after the rain, which I knew I was going to be golden because there weren't going to be any tire tracks, there weren't going to be any footprints, and I was right. And this was a brown scene, very pretty, early morning, I would say probably 5:30 in the morning. But the light was just so amazing. When I took the color of the sand out of it, it really allowed you to see all the ridge lines. It almost sounds like in the book, the Heinlein's book Dune, when you were thumping to bring the sandworms out. That's what came to mind for me, was that the ground would literally shake and you would get this vibrational pattern. And even in Lawrence of Olivier, when he sunk into the quicksand, it's that whole sense that you get. You get the sense of infinite, the sense of timelessness. And so for me, most of my photography is tied up in being able to acquire that sensation and then capture it and share it with you.
Absolutely beautiful, Howard. Really,
I'm
really.
gonna stop. I'll stop the share. There we go.
Yes, Howard, when you're done, make sure you put in the chat room, your website, your tour company, all of that. And people can buy prints from you as well?
Yes, they can. I took all the images that were in this particular show and put it up on SmugMug on hpaley.com. And you can find those images there, and you certainly can find me on Facebook. And I apologize to the others, to Anna, for going over.
No,
But
No,
it's absolutely fine. And you are now, and for the younger people won't know, you are now forever the Lou Gehrig of photography. And you have to, if you don't know what that is, you have to do research. And then crystal
Frank, I'm
clear.
gonna need some context.
Yes, well, everyone, he was a great Yankey, and I'll leave it at that.